Coach, welcome in.
Thank
Quick
you.
reminder to everyone, if you haven't applied for new credentials for Sunday, please make sure to do that. The link is in that email. Um, with that, we'll kick it off with Jack.
Hey, Coach. Hope you're well. I guess kind of seeing Marshall upset Virginia, did that kind of surprise you to get the opportunity to have a second chance to host in the tournament, having them upset the seeded team?
I would say it was a surprise. We knew how good Marshall was. We've seen them a couple times this year. They're very talented. So, yeah, by seed wise, Virginia had a really good year, and it's obviously tough to win away from home. And Virginia's record at home is, I'm sure, historically pretty darn good. So, I guess yes, but certainly not one that if you look across the board, I would have been like, man, that's going to be a far fetched result. I thought it'd be a really tight game, and it really was. So. Yeah, they're Marshall's a really good side.
Jared.
Hey Todd, happy Thanksgiving first of all. Yeah, with Marshall, I know you're not too big into bulletin board material and whatnot, but obviously, having played them in the national championship, does that do something to the locker room or give them a little bit more juice, or is it just business as usual this week?
I think the guys are pretty focused on. We always say, and we preach it with the guys, like it's the next game, and you can't, the opportunity's in front of you right now, and when it's gone, whether you capture it or not. So I don't. We haven't as a staff been talking a lot about 2 years ago, or not quite even 2 years ago, spring of 21. I think in the players, I'm just going in their minds. Of course, you remember those moments. And there, if it's a team that you played and players that you're familiar with, and you were that close to raising a title, I think that's already there. So don't need to kind of fuel that fire, if you will. It's just already inherently part of this equation. And yet you don't want to, we want to play passionate, but not emotional. And I think that's where if you get caught up in the emotions, it can lead you to not be steady in the big moments.
Good, Tyler.
Hey, Coach. I hope you're doing well. I don't know how much in depth you want to go in on this, but just the national championship game from 2 years ago. What all do you remember from it? And are there kind of things maybe in the aftermath of it in the locker room, stuff like that maybe fans or we couldn't specifically see that you just remember from that night?
Well, it's an overtime. We've had two of them. Our last two championship games have been overtime losses. It's you're never ready for it. It looked like that game was maybe heading to penalties, as was Stanford in 17. So, it suddenness of it, and there's really not much you can do after the game. You're just there for the guys, and you're thanking them for having them get the team and the program into those big moments, because it's so hard to get there. And you just feel like, everything you've done and just feel gutted, and you don't have any perspective at the time, and nor should you fully. Our job is to just let them, console them, help them. But it was obviously just a very sad locker room. And I do remember that. And, there wasn't really much said about we're not talking about next year at that time. We're not talking about hopefully getting a shot at Marshall, or you're just trying to help the guys through that moment. Well, that's what I remember.
Camille.
Hey, Coach, hope you're well. I guess just compared to that Marshall team from 2 seasons ago, do you see any glaring differences in the way they set up, or are you expecting more of the same?
More of the same. They're, they've replaced some really good players with more good players. They're going to be very composed. They have very good high-end technical players. They're going to be heavily international, as they were in 2021, and their style is fairly similar. And there's 4 or 5 key players that are still there. So, I haven't really dug into full Marshall yet. That's more today and tomorrow with the staff. But yeah, the little I've seen, it's a very similar Marshall, and I don't expect them to change.
Austin.
Coach, you didn't know this on Sunday, but that you would be home in this match, but this one, and this will be your final home match of the season, no matter what happens elsewhere. So is that any less pressure on you, knowing that the home fans are there one last time, and considering there's pretty good attendance? And I guess just talk about the guys that will be playing their last home match in the Cream and Crimson.
Yeah, there is. You never know in the tournament, but obviously in this particular season situation, there is an opportunity that lines up. Again, don't play much into that. There's a lot for them to think about going into a big tournament game, and we don't want them thinking about this is their last opportunity. I do hope that the fans, the students in particular, who really can change the atmosphere at Armstrong, although our town fans are phenomenally important as well, really come out knowing that there isn't another opportunity. So if you haven't been able to come out to support the team, people love big games. There's no bigger that will happen at Armstrong this year for our program, and that can make a big difference. So I'm just really hopeful and encouraged all of our IU supporters, whether you're not even a huge soccer fan, but you just want to see IU athletics do well. This is a good opportunity to help us on Sunday evening.
Go to Pete.
Yeah. Hey, Todd, how are you?
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, I'm just doing a feature on Ryan, and wanted to just get your thoughts on him. The fact that he's had his best season as his last season, and his ability to make game-winning goals.
Yeah, he's done really well, Pete. I mean, as we've said a few times, it's a great story, a story that's been told before in our program. You look in the All-Americans just across the room from me, and you see some guys that were red shirts that just waited their time and got better and got pushed. And in Ryan's case, there was some talent, but a fairly I wouldn't say unrecruited. He was recruited by Wisconsin and some other schools, but he wasn't a national recruit. Luckily, our alum, Robert Meshbaugh, was the one that tipped us off on Ryan, because he coached him with Libertyville. And when we first saw him, you could see his technique, and he struck a ball really clean, but he certainly didn't have the other areas of his game cleaned up. And it was a really, I'd call it a very natural progression, where it's 2 steps forward, 1 back in his development throughout his time. And then right when you enter this phase, it's like everything now has been forward. So he just isn't going back to some habits, or whether that's his defending moments, whether that's him able to handle the physicality, or his endurance is improved. All those areas he now is established, and he's really confident. And when you take a confident player with the abilities that he has when he can strike a ball, that's what you need. And we had that in most all of our runs, is a really confident attacker. And if you have a couple, then that's bonus. But really one that's really feeling it and in a great place, and he's that for us right now.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
Aaron?
Coach, this is kind of a loaded question, but I was looking at Marshall, and what struck me is they played less of a game, less good teams than St. Louis has, hence their lower RPI. But it looks to me like the RPI doesn't do them justice, because a couple games they have played against competition, they've been top competition, even though it's a lot less, they've been more successful than St. Louis in those results. And then furthermore, the Sweet 16 round has been your jinx round. You're only 4-6 in it in your career in the NCAA tournament. You have a winning record in every other round. So what do you have to do to basically clear this round, which has been an issue for you against the Marshall team that, do you agree, is better than St. Louis?
Austin only gives me the good stats, Aaron. Why do you keep giving me the ones that aren't so good? No, I mean, it's a tough round. I mean, all the rounds are tough. Goodness gracious. It's to answer your question with regards to, I don't really look at the rounds and what our record is in each one. Honestly, I didn't know that. It's just it's a tough game. I mean, it's a tough game. They're really good. They're really talented. And I couldn't get the first part of your question. Was it regarding the Marshall again? Was it?
Yeah, it's with Marshall. Do you think they're a better team than St. Louis and the RPI doesn't do it justice because they've played less top teams, so the RPI slotted them lower, but they've been more successful against those top teams. So do you think they're better?
I mean, it's a way different. It couldn't be this is like playing Air Force and UConn back to back in 17 or 18, two drastically different styles. St. Louis was pretty defensive. They were very good on restarts. Marshall's good on restarts, but they're predicated more on getting their chances through the run of play, and they're individually very gifted, and they'll be expansive. You rarely saw St. Louis's wingbacks, up in the front half of the field for them. You'll see them all the time for Marshall. So the game will be much more up and down. And Marshall did really well against some of the other top teams, as you noticed with Kentucky and Pitt, two really good teams. They tied and beat. So we always knew that Marshall was a really good side. And yet they lost and had a couple results that didn't go their way. And they had a couple, I wouldn't say soft teams. There's so many damn good teams out there. But not the schedule we had. So next thing you know, they're sitting in the mid-30s, which isn't going to get you a seed. So are they a seeded level team? Absolutely. But it wasn't to be for them this year. And now they got to obviously come to our place and certainly it's going to be one heck of a challenge.
Go to Matthew Byrne.
Hey, Coach. Happy Thanksgiving to you. After that SLU match, you were saying that Tommy and Sam didn't really see the field as much just based on matchups. Is that something that you foresee for Sunday for them to see the field more? Or do you think guys like Maloon are going to sort of stay in that role up top?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard right now. Some of that is in the game. I didn't think we didn't draw that up. We thought Sammy and Tommy would probably be in the game a little bit more than they were. It's just that's the way that we kind of felt it, and we kind of rode the hot hand, if you will. We are going to be able to. We do need to break and have transition moments against this team, and we need to have some speed up top. Which obviously Sammy, Maloon, Carson's a more of a hold up player, but he's got enough speed. He doesn't have breakaway pace like Sammy and Maloon do, or Herb. And Tommy's got some really good speed. So it's going to be based on how many opportunities are we getting? Are we in a deeper block? Are we in a pressing block? And then just the form of the player. So I see it being, I don't think we'll ride someone, put it that way, that it's maybe having just a solid game. I think we'll make a change to, one, keep our ability to get in behind and press. I think that's something that's very important against Marshall, is the ability when and where we do that. We'll have to be pretty strategic on that. But when we do, we need to have the juice to do it. And it's going to require some work. So the rotation would be maybe just to keep the freshness of the group.
Matt Press.
Hey, Coach. So you said stylistically Marshall's kind of the same that you saw in the national championship. So just kind of curious, how important is it that those veteran guys on your back line have already seen that?
No, that's probably the biggest positive takeaway. And we played, look at some of the attacking teams we played. I mean, I thought we did a great job against Portland's front three, and they've been a nemesis to everyone this year and scoring loads of goals against top teams. You saw us take, Akron out of the comfort and handle them really well. Obviously, in our own conference, you have some pretty dynamic wide players across the Big Ten, but in particular Maryland and some others that we've handled well. Clemson's got as good of a front group as there is. So not only have they played against those guys that are out there, a couple of them for Marshall, but we've played against other players of similar ability. And that, as a player and as a coach, just gives you confidence that, yeah, they're not going to be, one, rattled by the moment, or two, not prepared to handle that type of player. And that's why our scheduling is so important.
Go back to Jack.
I guess more generally, looking back at that match against St. Louis, now that you've had a few days to kind of decompress, think about the match, what did you kind of like, not like, that you want to carry into the match against Marshall?
Well, our front half possession was we had a lot of it. I thought we could have been a little bit sharper with our final kind of entry ball or final movement, and our second movements in the box looking back. We didn't frame the box as well as we could have for second, especially with the way they were kind of congesting the six. That said, I thought really outside the first 20 in live, it felt and looked just like it was on video. We controlled pretty much 70 minutes of the game, and did some good things, but it was a cagey match. There weren't many opportunities to get 2v1s or to get even to 1v1 situations. Most every time we got the ball forward, they closed the space super well with cover. Their midfield doubled back. They were able to get 8 guys near the ball or their 2 lines of 4 quickly. And that's just not what Marshall does. They just send more players forward. So there'll be more 1v1, more opportunities in transition or 2v2s for us to, have looks at. And hopefully we can do really well in those. That will probably be the biggest, but that was the takeaway. Live and the video was pretty similar. And, the game was a little slow because of, every throw in for them was almost a long throw inside 30 yards. So the game tempo was also a lot slower than what you'd expect in this next game.
Tyler?
I wanted to ask about Carson Henderlong, obviously coming from Xavier, but he's from Indiana. Did you guys recruit him the first time around? And I guess how did just the process go once he got in the portal and getting him to IU?
Yeah, we knew of Carson. We didn't have a positional need, and we knew Carson was a guy that could go in and help a program. So when you have those, you typically don't. If you don't have a pathway for a player like that, it's not really smart for either party. And so we've not recruited a couple players that people are like, why didn't you recruit him? Like, well, he's one. Probably not going to be a patient player in the sense of like his developmental pathway. He's more ready to compete, and he's physically was already a man at 17, 18. So other guys you look at and like, wow, there's some growth there. There's a little bit lean, all those factors where Carson was a man at 18. And so, so he picked a good program, did really well, and then wanted to change a venue and be, as he said, challenged differently. He felt like no matter how he did, he was kind of left on the field, for 80 minutes and which was, I'm sure in one hand, great, but the other one, he wanted to be pushed more. And he knew that would be here. And he has been, and he's been, up and down with us this year. He's done some great things, and some games we haven't used him or featured him. And he's been great with his attitude. He's really locked in. It's been a process for him. I mean, it wasn't super easy. No, he's never sat, and everyone feels that at some point in their career. And if you're fortunate that that's maybe the first time as a professional, then you're fortunate. But most of them, feel that at some point, either at the youth level or the college level. And you can grow a lot from that. You can. And he's, I think, taken that approach of, yes, here's what I need to continue to do better. Here's how I have to adapt my game to help. It's a different system. He plays a one striker and just kind of, we call it window wash, just kind of forces the play, and then kind of central where we press out more, where we just demand more of our strikers. So it's been fun to see him grow within the season with us.
We have 4 hands up. We'll finish with those 4 questions, starting with Jared.
Just this week, having the luxury of playing at home, Thanksgiving tomorrow. Just what does it this week look like for the team and training wise?
It's a great week. I mean, Sunday was one of my favorite days of the year. When you advance and you have an early game, which we typically do that round, and just to have the whole rest of the day to watch and enjoy. The staff was over. We had alums in town. It was just an enjoyable day, all the way around. And knowing that you're going to spend the week with the team and you have a full week. Rarely do we have a full week. So we've been able we're just layering things on day by day. We can keep the sessions a bit shorter. Today was the longest that we've gone, and it was probably an hour and 20. We've done most sessions under 50 minutes. It's just fine tuning to a couple of things, keeping them sharp, focused, and making sure physically they're ready. And obviously you throw the World Cup on top of it. I mean, these guys are in heaven, as we are as coaches. My distraction is how much video I have to watch of them. And I'm like, I get distracted by every good World Cup game on. So I got to turn my TV off. there's obviously a good one on here now. It's just started.
We'll go to Griffin.
Hey, Coach. It feels like every game Joey makes a big play defensively. You know, he made a key stop on Sunday. Obviously, he started almost every game he's been at IU, but how have you seen him develop over the course of his career, both on and off the field?
He has. I mean, and Joey's the one that, came in and an expectation was not to start right away. We thought it'd take him a year or two, and he has we call it the mayor gene, the mayor way. They're winners. They I guess the biggest compliment, they make other players around him better. That's a great compliment you can have as a teammate. His communication skills are high end. They were as a freshman, they are now as a junior. He is a student in the game. He pays attention to details and his focus. He celebrates other people's success. He wants you to have success. But his areas of improvement have certainly been, I think he's physically developed. His quickness and speed. His aerial play has improved. His ability to serve and hit other types of balls as left foot as a natural left-sided player, he's really improved since day one. And he's made little strides in everything, but he's been fantastic for us, and we're obviously excited to see him and Muni and BB and Nick as a more mature back line face this really dynamic attack. A year and a half later, basically.
Aaron?
Coach, this is kind of a fun question. I'm glad you mentioned the World Cup, because I wanted to ask you, what team do you consider your style closest to in the World Cup? And then also within the realms of college soccer, maybe the same team, but within the realms of college soccer, what nation would you relate yourself to?
I'm gonna see who wins really well today. What was there, 7-0? I'm gonna pick Spain, maybe. No, I mean, traditionally I would say like a Germany would be it's hard because these teams even will change, but the Germans and I would throw the Italians, who have been obviously up and down the world stage, are ones that are very disciplined and good defensively. Obviously have some great weapons going forward, but always a difficult team to play against with great team chemistry more often than not. This particular World Cup, I mean, there's been some phenomenal performances so far. I haven't caught the Spain game. I just saw the result when we came in for training. And you already saw the upsets, if you will, of Saudi Arabia, Argentina. But I don't know if that was as much of an upset as people thought based on some of the play. So I wish I could dig in full on this World Cup right now, but I can't. But I would say the team that I've probably through the years most looked at would be Germany.
We'll finish it up with Austin.
Coach, I guess just take us back to Sunday after you knew that you guys won and the UVA match wasn't necessarily set yet. Was there in the locker room, were the guys watching or the alums there as well? I guess talk about the atmosphere and then maybe the initial reaction if you were there to that after those penalties when Marshall came out with the win.
Yeah, we were that was pretty cool. That was really neat. The guys were back at that point. I was back in my house. We had some alums over and the staff, so we all were kind of celebrating together. We anytime you can get a home game and take the less travel, it makes the week easier to manage, and it gets us a chance to be in front of our fans. You always go that, and UVA was a team that I've actually never played at as a player or coach. Of many is predominant. They've been in the circle of the national scene, so I had a little of intrigue there. And yeah, at the same time, knowing we'd be home would be the treat. So everyone was clearly happy, but they know what's in front. It's one heck of a team we're playing.
Okay, we'll close it there. If anyone needs anything before Sunday, just let me know. Until then, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Have a Thanksgiving, guys. Have a good one. Thanks.